I'm now done with season 1 of Succession. I cruised right through it. I'm actually part of the way done with season 2, but I'll do a separate video doing storyline, symbolism, and so forth from season 2. I don't want to intermingle those, even though there's a lot of relation between the seasons, clearly. So at the end of season 1, really cool ending 2 episodes. They go to a castle in England for Shiv and Tom's wedding. There's a lot that goes on there, certainly. But it's a really fitting scene for the show to wind down at season 1, because the whole theme, the overarching theme of season 1 is really this palace intrigue, the family dynamics, who's going to take over, how's it going to happen, will it happen? Talking about the company and also as the patriarch or matriarch of the family. So we're put into this castle in England, so it's a foreign place. It's almost like a back to your roots experience because Logan is from the UK. He's Scottish originally, is my understanding in the show. So it's a really cool location, awesome filming location. It's very a lot of Renaissance style paintings and stuff around. So it really harkens back to an old age where there probably would be people in castles plotting against each other. So I thought that was really cool, very interesting visually. So Shiv, she didn't invite her father to the wedding, or he disinvited himself. And then he realizes he really has to go because the public optics as the company is being scrutinized publicly would be awful of not going to your daughter's wedding. So that would be a disaster. So Logan ultimately ends up showing up. Shiv is not so pleased with that. She talks with Jerry, I believe, who is basically the consigliere for Logan at the company. She's general counsel or in-house counsel. And she's very smart and knows what she's doing, very business oriented. And she knows how to handle Logan, generally speaking, and how to reach him, usually through his kids. So it's a good person to talk to Shiv about what's going on. A funny note is that they're standing around what looks like a pool table, but given that it's in England, is probably a snooker table. And I don't think that's an accident also, aside from being in England, because the actress who plays Shiv is named Sarah Snook. So a snooker table where Sarah Snook would be, that probably has something to do with itself. There's basically Greg figures out, he's looking around, he figures out that this guy Nate, who brought Shiv on to Gil, the sort of Bernie Sanders-esque politician's presidential campaign, and Shiv are having an affair or back to having one. They were dating in the past. He doesn't know if he should tell Tom. So the morning after the initial opening scenes and opening night and banquet at the castle, or cocktail reception, whatever you call it, Tom's out for a run. I think Shiv is as well. There's a very brief cut to sheep in the hillside, and there's one black sheep among the bunch. And I think that's a reference to Kendall. It's sort of foreshadowing his takeover plan with the company that he'd organized. So that's a really interesting thing to see. And then Greg tries to tell Tom, hey, Shiv's cheating on you, and Tom basically is not having it. He starts to push him and get really pissed off. It's like, don't be telling me that, even though it's true, even though Greg's looking out for him. So then basically there's this whole dynamic between Gil and Logan and Shiv that's been playing out since even before Logan arrived. And they have to determine what's going to happen. Is Logan going to sort of agree to a ceasefire with Gil? Is Gil going to stop about talking about taking on Waystar Royco if Logan decides to stop bringing up his wife who committed suicide and all this really ugly stuff? And ultimately, Shiv gets them to shake hands and agree on a deal, but they don't formally shake hands. And in that scene, it's really good because Logan says, we don't want to get each other dirty, do we? So they don't shake hands. And before that, Logan's talking about the castle they're at and how it was built by slaves and stuff. And he's really playing to Gil's looking out for the marginalized sort of campaign pitch. So he's such a cagey guy. He's just absolutely amazing at manipulating people, and you're going to see that in the following scenes, the following episodes. So then you have Logan he's in the bathroom, he's in his boxers and undershirt, and all of a sudden Kendall has to gather up the courage to go tell him, hey, Dad, we're going to take over your company. And Logan gets the offer, which is, they know it's going to have to be a hostile takeover, but they make an offer for what sounds like a good amount of money per share. And Logan takes the piece of paper and throws it in the toilet. He's actually got a very weak hand in the situation, but he can't show that to Kendall. And Kendall is in, he's in his suit. He's got his blazer on. He looks the part, but he's so weak. And Logan barely wearing anything. He's got none of his quote unquote armor on. He's still just beating his son around and really putting him in his place. But he walks away, and then you hear Marcia and him talking, and he's like, I'm in bad position. And Marcia basically motivates him and says, it's time to get ready to fight this, more or less. You can tell she's a lot of the power behind the throne. Not that Logan isn't making decisions, but clearly Marcia is not just this. She's not so much conniving, like she's not looking for money from Logan, but she seems to genuinely care about him and want to strengthen his position. And the night before, where Shiv has an incident with Gil and her father, Marcia really sticks up for Logan, and she starts essentially what sounds like cursing Shiv out in French. You'll notice in these episodes, there's a very Tolstoyesque family dynamic going on with the cheating and the arguing and the backstabbing. And it's one of the things that Tolstoy does so great in his novels is the aristocracy in Russia would speak to each other in French often, so that those working around them who were of a lower class didn't understand what they were saying. It was like an upper class code language almost, even though it was just them speaking French. So Marcia is Lebanese, which Lebanon is a very long history of French influence, so she speaks French as well. But it's a very nice dynamic of them in this castle, this sort of palace, her cursing out Shiv in French so no one else can understand it. Probably even Shiv cannot understand it. So I really like that. And you get to understand Marcia's character better. Then you have really good symbolism with Roman. Roman has been involved somehow. They have a project where they're launching a rocket in Japan. It looks like Japan. And Roman wanted to he says he wanted to almost have fireworks for Shiv's wedding. So he pushed forward the rocket plans. The rocket ends up exploding. Now, it's a funny scene. No one actually dies, apparently, but it looks like it's a gigantic explosion. And the symbolism there is its failure to launch. And it's somewhat failure to launch for Roman in the sense that he's never actually going to be able to achieve any greatness because he's too dopey, and he's so self-focused that he can't really grow the business, can't do anything too complex with the business. But it's really symbolic of what's going to happen with Kendall with his failure to launch. So Logan at one point explodes on this kid who was in the first night, I believe, or probably the second night, he's supposed to be he offers to pour him a drink. Logan says he doesn't want it, and this waiter begins to pour the drink. It spills. Logan goes ballistic on him, has him fired. You see the kid signing an NDA on the spot. And that's sort of foreshadowing what's going to happen with him, where he won't be able to talk about something. Tom ends up being told by Shiv basically that she's been sleeping with other people. Tom tells her that he was with another woman at his bachelor party. Another Tolstoyesque thing where Tolstoy in real life had his wife, before they got married, or maybe just after they got married, read his whole diary, which is also a scene in Anna Karenina where Levin has Kitty Shcherbskaya read his, or maybe not his diary, but understand some backstory that he had been with other women before, that he wasn't a virgin and so forth, and it really breaks her heart. And I guess Tolstoy's wife hated him for this in real life. But Shiv doesn't care, because again, Shiv, she's a backstabber. She's sharp. She doesn't really care. She's very low in emotion, and eventually she tells Tom, I've had an affair with this guy, Nate. And Tom, in a weird way, when he learns this for sure, he's almost turned on by it or empowered by it. And he goes and kicks the guy Nate out of the wedding. So he's like, get the hell out, pour that wine back into the bottle. He humiliates him, essentially. So it's a weird way of Tom feeling empowered by being told that his new wife has been cheating on him and probably will continue to do so. So then Kendall is dealing with everything with his dad, and he needs to do drugs because anytime he gets stressed out, he breaks down, especially dealing with his dad, and he has to get high, and he wants cocaine. So he goes outside, he talks to the waiter who Logan just had fired. The kid's already on drugs, and he was told, I think by Greg, that this kid could probably help him find drugs. So the kid says, well, I can't drive. Kendall decides to drive, and Kendall ends up swerving to avoid a deer, what looks like a deer in the road. They crash into water. Kendall gets out. The waiter's left in there. Kendall has to run back. So it's an allusion to Chappaquiddick, where Ted Kennedy and Mary Jo Kopechne drive off, I think it's Martha's Vineyard, into the water. Ted gets out. Mary Jo dies. We don't know exactly what happened other than that, and that afterwards Ted Kennedy covers it up, doesn't tell police. They basically have a plan before he even goes to police to try and save her. So anyway, that's an allusion to that in a very strong sense. And then it's also an allusion beyond Tolstoy getting more into Russian literature to Dostoyevsky, to Crime and Punishment. So Kendall basically has killed someone. The next morning, his dad figures out about it, obviously, because why wouldn't he? It ends up cutting down the takeover deal plans because Kendall's shares are not going to be going to him, because his dad can either say he killed somebody or he can help cover it up. And so, but basically, you see the next morning, even before he finds out that his dad knows about it, that he's trying to live his normal life and be more happy than usual, be more chatty and friendly than usual. But by doing that shows that something is off with him. And in Crime and Punishment, Raskolnikov, the main character, kills a really evil woman, but then also has to kill, I think, her niece or her cousin, who's totally innocent. The woman didn't deserve to be killed to begin with. And then he's got to deal with after he's committed the crime, but the punishment is not even a legal punishment. Instead, you have to live with yourself after that. That's worse than any legal punishment if you have a soul, if you have a conscience. And so anyway, the episode ends, and the season ends with Logan is holding Kendall to his chest, basically, my boy, my number one boy, everything's going to be okay, and alluding to the desert symbolism of the prior episodes mid-season. He tells him, go out to the desert and get dried out, and then he basically calls someone in to take him away. And if you look behind Logan at this point, there is what looks like a Renaissance painting of people bowing down before it looks like a Roman prelate or something. And it's really, really well done. And that's how the season ends, and it really sets up everything nicely. But amazing first season. I'm liking the second season so far. I'll do videos on that. But really hope you guys have been enjoying this. Hope it expands on the show. Obviously, I'm not involved with the show. I just, as a writer, see some of these symbolic aspects and some of these cool things I pick up on, and I really think the writing is fantastic on the show. So I've enjoyed doing these, and I'll continue them.